It's one of these things that I realize you're not going to know until you know. You can read about it, you can talk about it, you can have other people tell you about it, but until you start experiencing it.
All right, so we are at the NBA All-Star Game.
Yes.
Quite an experience. Super grateful to have you in
Likewise.
My hometown of Indianapolis. Tell me a little bit about what your experience has been so far here at the All-Star Game.
Well, it's been great. Everyone's been super welcoming and gracious. It's my first time coming to this area. I actually drove up from Georgia. A friend of mine recommended, hey, you should come out to a great place, meet some great people. And I actually enjoy driving. So I took a 7-hour trip from Georgia and drove straight up through.
We're in Georgia.
Just outside of Atlanta. So I live in the sticks. I say Atlanta because everyone knows where that is, but it's more towards the Alabama side.
More towards the, what's it called?
So the place I live is called Newnan. It's a sleepy little town outside of the Atlanta suburbs, the hustle and bustle of the city. And
that's not where you're originally from.
No, in case my southern accent didn't come through. No, I'm actually from Brooklyn, New York. And I moved a lot as a kid. So I think a lot of my accent got lost along the way. But there was places.
Brooklyn to Newnan.
Yeah. But there was California and Long Island and Staten Island and New Jersey mixed in between there.
Which one do you like best?
I think there were different seasons for me along the way, right? As a kid, I didn't like moving so much, but looking back, it gave me a lot of interesting life experience. And I enjoy living in Southern California as an adult for a period of time. As a kid, actually, I loved that because getting the freedom of riding your bicycle out in the hills was awesome to do that. And I couldn't do that in Brooklyn, New York, right? So I think there were seasons for everything, and they were kind of all interesting for their own purpose.
So what's that like, Brooklyn, New York, as a kid? Like, so, well, first of all, I'm not going to date you, but like,
yeah, well, we could.
What do you, like, stickball in the street?
There actually was, yeah. You see, funny you say that. So in Brooklyn, New York, in the 80s and 90s, there was some interesting things going on. Number one, Giuliani was not in power then. And so the 4th of July's in Brooklyn were something extraordinary. They were literally like war zones. I know that sounds kind of crazy because it is. As a kid, as an 8-year-old kid, where like you had some firecrackers that you can light things off, but every block in Brooklyn had their own fireworks show. And so think of that, like all these
like legit fireworks.
Yeah, like M80s, mortars, all of the things. And so it was like a war zone. But as a kid, like you'd get like a model car and a phone book and you'd blow that up, whatever. And then when Giuliani became the mayor, he outlawed all fireworks. So when that happened, like it was the saddest 4th of July. It was never the same. And it sucked. And I tried to explain to my kids, you don't know what it was like being able to light your own fireworks. I mean, it's beautiful to be able to watch fireworks, but it was just very different.
I think they do that in Amsterdam. They just like go ham on, obviously not 4th of July, but maybe it's New Year's Eve. Like everybody lights off. Yeah. Like it's like your personal fireworks show.
Exactly. It's exactly what it is.
In your front yard.
Yes. We used to get into so much trouble. I mean, Halloween was also a terrible time for the people who lived there. As kids, we would terrorize each other. We would egg each other. We used to go to apartment buildings and ring all the doorbells. It was the easiest thing because you just push one button and then you run your hand down and everyone would yell at you, stop doing that. I mean, it was good times. Good times.
That's the loss too, right? You're terrorizing, and I'm sure it was frustrating at the moment, but then as a child, it's kind of like the rite of passage.
Totally was. And I don't know if kids have that today because like everything is this now.
Yeah, the rite of passage is they played a video game and they, you know what I just learned? This is crazy. I don't know. Do you have kids?
I do. I have 3 girls.
How old?
3, 8, and 10 and a half.
Oh, see, you got to be careful. Here's the ding dong ditch of today's world.
Okay.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
They play video games online.
Yes.
And so you become big. You're a big video game guy.
Yes.
And so now you have all these viewers.
Uh-huh.
And I am watching you from Indiana.
Sure.
You're over there in Atlanta. You just can't probably do this from Newnan. So you should get in like a high rise in Atlanta, right?
Okay.
And I'm jealous of you. So you know what I do? Rather than ding dong ditch, I call the SWAT team. And I say that there's a hostage situation
at my house
at JP's. Yeah.
You sabotaged my game.
And the SWAT team is obligated to go. This is actually called swatting. Have you guys heard of this? It's swatting. Yeah. So the SWAT team, so you're live, right? And you got, hundreds of thousands of people are watching. And then the SWAT team comes
My goodness.
to your house and disrupts your whole.
At the very least, if they don't kick down your door.
Right. That's today's ding dong ditch. Popular gamers now have to notify the police. Hey, this is me. Like, I'm Sean, and I don't know how that works.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
right, my handle or what so I'm a gamer. Don't send the SWAT team. So if you get called, like, then they have like a way to verify, because they're obligated, right? If I was like, hey, it was a hostage situation, then they go.
Just watch the channel. You'll see I'm not hostile.
Right. But the police are like, I'm showing up. But that's far worse than ding dong ditch.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think everything in today's day and age is a bit more extreme than it was when I was growing up, and probably when you were growing up, and what it's like for our kids. So
let's bring that to present day. So as far as work is concerned, you have a lot of varied interest, and tell me about how that interest kind of evolves on your journey geographically, moving around.
I think as a kid, a lot of this didn't really hit home for me or evolve until I was living in New Jersey. This is probably about 10-ish years ago. That's sort of when I started my personal development journey. Up at that point, I was living, I would call an ordinary life, just like the rest of my family was. My father is a first-generation immigrant, so I guess he was from Sicily. I'm sort of first generation from that. All of my cousins did the normal thing, which was you find a job, find a spouse, you get married, you have kids, live in a house. And
in Brooklyn.
Or New Jersey now. They kind of evolved from that point in time. And I was the only one that kind of did things differently. I moved out of the state, at a relatively young age. I lived with my girlfriend at the time. That was a big taboo thing. And so I've always kind of found a way to kind of chart my own path. And so I always kind of did things a bit differently than the rest of my family did. And I think that led me, or served its purpose for me really well onto my career, encouraging me to become an entrepreneur and doing things, taking on risk, starting businesses, and doing things that my family wouldn't even conceive of doing. My grandma was telling me, like, get a good job, just keep it, save your money, because she grew up in a time where that's what you had to do, and living through bombings in World War II or the Depression and all those things. So it was a different mindset.
Last night we were at a dinner, and Dominique Wilkins was talking about kind of a very similar thing, right? Like, doing what the family expected you to be a certain way. Mm-hmm. He moved out. He moved on. He was really good at basketball. Somebody kind of helped him. What was sort of your Dominique Wilkins moment? Like, so you get a very similar journey. This is what you need to do. And you're like, all right, I'm going to go do this. Like, I'm going to break out. I see a different path. And then one of the things that was interesting to me is then these people show up in Dominique's life that were like, hey, I'm going to show you the way. Yeah. Right. Like, tell me your Dominique Wilkins moments along this path. How do you get so successful?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think I instilled a strong work ethic from my father, watching my father work, bust his butt. He used to fix CAT scans and MRI machines, and he would commute 4 hours total each day, plus work 8 hours a day. So learning that work ethic, that was, I think, one big part. And then I'm stubborn. And so I don't like being told no. So it inspires me to kind of find a way to do it outside of that. And then as I've gotten older, I feel like I've gotten a bit more spiritual with things and open to God and the universe, like allowing things to happen for you and finding a lot of amusement and intrigue and just kind of sitting back and letting things happen. So for example, this morning, I was getting my things to be here on time at 10 a.m., go to get my wallet, and the safe wouldn't open in the hotel room. So I call the desk. It takes them 20 minutes to get there. They get there. They have to call somebody else. Batteries die in the keypad. So 35 minutes into this, right, I'm realizing, you know what? I wasn't meant to be in the car at that time. Who knows why? Okay. That's the opinion I took at it. But so many things in my life, as I kind of stepped into things or made an intention in going somewhere, like learning how to do real estate, the right people would show up at the right time. And it's beautiful when that happens. And it's exciting because you don't know where at any turn, any person that you meet, anything that you read, any kind of inspiration takes you to a different spot. It's fascinating for me.
So real estate, like such a for the service world, for the entrepreneur world, such a sexy thing to be involved. Everybody's like,
it is
right.
You just say, I'm a real estate investor.
Well, yeah, you read that, like all millionaires, like that's how they became a millionaire. They invested in real estate. So for you, why real estate?
So real estate started, the impetus was I wanted to figure out how to pay less in taxes. That was the first thing, but it led me down a path in realizing what I was looking for was passive income. I wanted time freedom. Everyone wants time freedom, right? If you want to do pottery on Thursdays at 3 p.m., then so be it. You should not be tied to your job. So I realized that real estate could be a vehicle to do that. The problem was there's a lot of things in real estate that you can do. You can do single family rentals. You can do fix and flip. There's a whole lot of things. I found apartment investing. And for me, apartment investing just made a lot of sense.
Is that the first thing you did? You went?
Yes, essentially, yes. I learned a couple of strategies of like buying single family houses, renting them, rehabbing them, renovating them and refinancing them. And that didn't make a lot of sense if the ultimate goal was to get to apartments. I'm like, why don't I just do the apartment thing? So found mentorship, found guidance, learned how that worked. And it's been a journey. It is not a sexy business at all. It's for me, extremely fun. Coming from tech sales, where I feel like that's being in sales, even though you're helping clients, I found myself giving a lot. It's a lot of energetic work going out. And in real estate, it's a very collaborative industry. People want to work together. They want to do deals. And the beautiful part of industry is, real estate rather, is it takes a village. Like there's no point in doing it yourself. There's way more joy in partnering with other people and working together to do something great. And so finding some great mentors, finding a great partner, and realizing in real estate, I have the ability to help people by improving the quality of their lives in the places they live. And so that's been transformational and phenomenal for me.
So now you have a lot of experience in that space. And it was interesting you brought up, you initially got into the space looking at the tax advantage for tax relief.
I was going in for we'll call it a selfish point of view. Like I want this thing from it. And I got something totally different.
But that's so help me to understand this. I always see like, I have so many friends on, like you said, there's so many things, single family, multifamily, fix and flip, all of
retail.
So I always say like, but here's the thing, like when you look at all of these things that people are doing, and people are successful in all of those lanes. Yeah. You always have to ask yourself, like, why are they doing that particular investment? Because sometimes it's for taxes, sometimes it's for cash flow. Mm-hmm. For me, when I very first heard about real estate, it was on the buy, rehab, rent and
the BRRRR strategy. Yeah. It's great.
And I was like, hey, so like I have my job. Mm-hmm. I'm making great money.
Yes.
I'm going to go do this and put all this work in, and you're going to make $350 or $500 a month per these units. And listen, Sean, all you got to do is have like 80 of these. And I was like,
you're set.
Oh, but that's way more work than what I'm doing right here. Help me to kind of untangle. How could I figure out of all these things, like what's sort of the process to figure out what's best for me? Because I think that so many people just pick, and we've been talking a lot about that this morning. They pick, well, I heard JP, he said apartments, so that's what I'm going to do.
Sure.
How do I know if what's going to be best for me and my needs?
It's a really good question. And I think it just comes down to research and learning about the different options that are out there. That's what I did. I think one of my unique ticks is I like to research the crap out of things. I want to learn all aspects of it. So I would advise anyone that wants to delve into real estate, you're going to have to find the thing that you really resonate with and like it makes sense for you. Because it's a great point. I don't think people realize it's a lot of work, a lot of brain damage, we call it, right? To like buy a house and to do all the work to get a renter in there. And the problem I had with that model was when that renter runs into some kind of problem, right? Lost their job, sickness, and they can't pay rent. Who's responsible for paying the mortgage? You are.
Well, that happened to a lot of people during COVID.
Exactly. And so for me, when I was researching apartments, that was a, not obvious, but that was a thing, like that's a risk. And then I learned that firsthand, kind of getting sucked into single family rental world with a partner of mine at the time and inheriting an awful tenant, right? Like God bless them, but they gave me a lot of lessons. And so I guess to answer your question, it's one of these things that I realize you're not going to know until you know. You can read about it, you can talk about it, you can have other people tell you about it, but until you start experiencing it, that's probably the best way to learn. And it's sort of a crappy answer because it means that there is some risk you have to take. Maybe you lose some money, but like there are some amazing lessons that you learn, or maybe you like it. Maybe you're really good at building systems and teams where you can outsource that and have someone else take care of that. That's also a possible answer. For me, for what I was looking to do, it wasn't my cup of tea.
So I'm not a part of the real estate community.
Sure.
It's not where I live, but like I said, I work with a lot of people because that's sexy, that want to be a part of that. One of my frustrations, so that's my disclaimer, I'm not part of the world, but one of my frustrations then is a lot of times for people that have jobs and are successful, real estate gets held out. And this might you might be like, yeah, this might resonate with you. Real estate gets held out to them as passive. It's always like, that's the whole racket. Like you want to get passive income.
Sure.
What you just described, I'm having a hard time seeing the passive part of that.
It's not. So I went into this business looking for passive income. And the joke I make to people is like, it has been anything but passive for me. It's been transformational in the sense that it made me understand like there's a path for getting to a passive income, generational wealth thing for myself and my family. I didn't have to go in, become active investor. I just loved the business. I loved the people that I'm like, I like this better than sales. So this is the direction I want to go. But I absolutely could have, if I wanted to stay in my career as sales, gone into being a passive investor. And we have many passive investors who they put in money into a deal. Their only job is the following. They sign the paperwork before they wire the money. They go to the bank to wire the money. They read like a monthly statement that comes out and they deposit checks if they get physical checks.
And they stay out of the way.
They're not involved in, we had an apartment complex with a woman who defecated all over the place. And we don't tell our investors about this because like, why do you need to know that? Why, right? Tenants, toilets, and trash. We take care of that. And so, yeah, there is an element of passivity if you want it to be there, but you can also take it to the other side and be active and be involved. And I think people need to recognize and understand what it is that you want to get into. Because you made an interesting observation early on, like, I'm going to do all this for $300 a month. That doesn't seem like a good risk reward. I mean, there's probably something else I could do with my time to get me to that point of passive income or whatever else.
Yeah. So tell me, the whole thing about paying the dummy tax, right? That's the biggest value. You go out, like you said, you take risks.
Yeah.
You might lose some money, but you will learn these lessons. For you, what do you feel is like in real estate has been like the biggest, like, wow, that I took my lumps. Some people might call it a defeat. Kind of hard to call it a defeat given what I've learned. What's been your biggest lesson that you had to learn by actually doing the thing?
I feel like I'm constantly learning. If I were to put my finger on things, I mean, it's easy to look at things at dollar amount. Like, what was the thing that cost me the most money? And I don't even know if that was necessarily the biggest lesson sort of thing. That makes sense in a strange way, right? Because there's been times where I lost a lot of money, got some lessons on there, but like that probably wasn't the biggest thing. It's just like a constant evolvement of experience and like adding little bits of knowledge blocks to your overall understanding of how the world of real estate or business works.
You don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what
especially
you don't know. Exactly.
Like deals, structure, financing, creative financing, what the market's going to do.
What a good partnership is, what a good relationship is. You get into a deal, everything's nice when you're dating, and then you get into the deal and you're doing things, and then times get tough, and then like true colors come out. And you don't know that until you're at that point in time. And you're like, all right, this is what I want to look for when I look for a real estate partner, right? I want them to have these qualities. You won't know that until you do that.
Mm-hmm. Have you done any fundraising where you have like a bunch of partners?
Yeah. That was one of the early things of we'll call it limited belief, personal development things I had to get over. Getting into real estate was like getting comfortable with asking people for money. Not even asking for money. That's how I looked at it, and realizing I'm trying to bring an opportunity for someone.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are some of the challenges there? Because that I think that's what keeps people in the single family.
Yeah.
Like because I don't want to
deal with partners. I just do it myself.
But then all of the allure is on the big stuff. Right?
Yeah.
There's 1,000 units in Texas or all these big deals. But you're like, I don't have that kind of money. So now you're like, okay, so I'm going to, have to get some capital together here. That's really outside of people's comfort zones. But that's like what you're saying, like why asking people for money, but even the art of presenting an opportunity, the art of selling an opportunity Tell me what that's like. Because sometimes too, like you think like, hey, I'm going to come to you and be like, hey, JP, I've got this great opportunity.
Yep.
But my fear is that if you're like, nah, I don't want to do it. Maybe you're even like, I can't do it. The minimum investment here is X and I don't have that amount. But my fear is I'm going to lose you as a friend. And then you're never going to talk to me ever again.
Yes.
What are the nuances of
there's so many things that I think part of it is being self-aware enough. And as part of the relationship, like I have a great friend, his name is Tyson. We have such a strong relationship that we were able to kind of put the business hat on, do our thing, we had disagreements, we take that off, and we were still friends. When you mix friendship, and money together, depending on, we'll call it spiritual maturity level or whatever else, that's a big risk. And not everyone is capable of being able to separate the two. So that is actually risky. The other part too that is risky is when you're getting started in real estate, especially if your goal is to get bigger and to also attract capital from other people, they want to look at your track record. Well, you can't get any track record until you do a deal, and you can't do a deal unless you raise money. And who will trust you to give you money? Friends and family. And so it's a hard thing to do unless you can find a sugar daddy friend that's got a bunch of money and they're willing to be a partner with you. Short of that, it is risky. You are putting your friends, family, hard-earned cash, and depending on their life situation, like they could be clutching to that. And if they lose that, it's irreparably damaged. It's not an easy answer for that.
Let's talk a little bit about, the hardest part of your industry for someone like you in that position. Put your prognosticator hat on. What do you see? What's going on in the market? Is this a good time? There's a lot of fear.
Yeah.
Interest rates, values. I mean, out in the Northeast, inventories, super scarce and interest rates are high. And so I can't really sell my house even if I needed to. Sure. And so like, what do you see happening out there? Is this a good time to be in real estate?
Oh, I'm going to give a surprising answer. I'm going to say the answer is yes. The couple observations that I've learned over my time in real estate. Number one, I think it's important for everyone to realize that real estate across the country is very cyclical, right? There's always a cycle of up and down. But that cycle lives in, or is made up of mini cycles. And that is dependent on each region in the US. So the Northeast might be at a bad time. California might be a bad time. Bad time meaning, it's a buyer's market. Like if you're a seller, you're going to get hosed sort of thing, right? So all those dynamics are going on. That's kind of one part. As far as interest rates go, at least for real estate I do, which is large apartment complexes, when interest rates go up, it makes it harder for us to do deals, but it also increases the buyer pool, or the renter pool, I should say, right? So if you're a normal person and you want to buy a house, suddenly it's become more unaffordable for you, or you can't qualify. What do? Well, you have to rent. So that puts you in the renter pool for apartments. So it's one of the reasons why I resonated so well with apartments, is because it checked all the boxes from like a risk reward standpoint of being able to stand the test of time a little bit. So, but if you're in single family, I have a friend, a partner, his whole business was wholesaling, and it literally disappeared. It kind of fell apart because the market went away. No one was selling. Interest rates made it, all the reasons. So it really depends on.
What do they do? Do they adapt? Or do they lay low until the cycle?
So there's two of them. There's two partners. One of them ended up getting a corporate job. Like he had to get to work again. They tried to restart the business, but they couldn't. And the other one has been unemployed for 8 months or so.
Why do you think that is? Why do they not just move into another lane of real estate?
I don't know. That's a good point. I wonder if because they felt so comfortable in that space that they had created a business around, or businesses around, and having to relearn, the skill sets required for a different avenue outside of just wholesaling maybe was too much, or maybe that they were transitory. Could be a variety of things. Uncomfort in the unknown. They're smart guys. Very curious. I will have to ask them that question. I didn't ask them why haven't you worked for 8 months? I don't know.
It seems like in real estate, you kind of buy into real estate and you kind of stay in the
industry. Yeah.
The industry.
Correct,
so
correct.
You're like, oh, this thing's not working. Let me
shift something else. Yeah, exactly.
So apartments,
but
great time. Go ahead.
You were saying what do I feel about even though there's a sense of doom and gloom, there's a ton of opportunity. Yeah. Sellers are still trying to get out of their high interest loans. And if they're willing to make deals, if you have cash, if I had a treasure chest of cash next to me, I would be going on a shopping spree right now.
which a lot of people are. A lot of people,
some people are trying, and a lot of people are still on the sidelines. They're waiting for the big crash to happen. And what I think the fallacy with that is, if everyone is waiting for the crash to happen, okay, then they all go in at the same time. They're all bidding up the price back to where it was. It obviates the point of waiting for the crash to happen.
Well, the crash should be like a second.
Exactly.
Just do, and then
that was it. Yes.
Right back.
That was it. That was the crash. We mentioned it.
Is it possible we already had it and it just...
It could be. There's still some more high interest rate loans that are going to be coming due this year. So it is unraveling these opportunities where these high interest rate loans are coming due and they can't refinance out of those loans. That's where you can kind of get into a distressed seller situation and being able to be opportunistic with a deal.
So apartments, what are you excited about in that space currently? What are you doing? What's your business currently doing that gets you super passionate?
So what I realized was early on, I like helping people, which I think is not uncommon. I think a lot of people like helping people, but like everyone has their own way of helping. So for me, it was computers. Like I had a natural talent in fixing computers, and I realized there's this cool thing that happens when I save your computer for something. You're like, oh my God, JP, thank you so much, right? Cool. When I got into real estate, I couldn't translate, how do I do the helping people thing? It didn't make sense. It was too nebulous for me. I had an amazing opportunity. Like life happened. I met this older gentleman at a networking event. Like the first person I walk up to out of 300 people became a mentor. And he shared with me his business model for how he ran his apartment complexes, which I'll tell you what it is, but ultimately we ended up hiring him as an advisor, and he helped us build this spiritual successor to what he did 20 years ago. And so this whole model was around this. When you operate an apartment complex, you don't call people renters. They don't live in apartments. They don't live in units. They don't pay rent. You elevate their status, if you will, to that of a member, like a country club. But it wasn't for, luxury housing. This is for like normal workforce, everyday people housing. Okay. You're a member. You pay a membership fee, not rent. You live in a home, not an apartment. And you're trying to incent a sense of pride and ownership, because if people care where they live, they take better care of the place. There's less wear and tear, less operating costs. And you're treating them with the fundamental aspect of dignity and respect, which when I do a lot of secret apartment shopping, I can count on one hand how many times I've been asked what my first name is. Usually the leasing agent is like, hi, how can I help you? I'm looking for an apartment. How many bedrooms do you need? 2. When can you move in? April. Like those are the 2 questions. And then they go on this show to tell you about the apartment, and they don't ask you, what brings you here? Who are you? You have family? What do you like to do for fun? And integrate like that into what your life would look like living in this community. And it was shocking. And so by kind of seeing this new way of doing things, like that makes a lot of sense. Like let's work to improve the quality of life for the people that live there. They'll be better humans, better moms, better dads, better spouses, better workers. And then we can incorporate my passion with like biohacking and self-improvement, and incorporate financial literacy programs into the community there so that you can help people dig themselves out of a hole, right? Ultimately, the goal is to get them to be at a better place. A lot of people live in our communities, they're like lifelong renters. I'm not judging that as bad or good, but like maybe at some point in time, they want to do something different for themselves. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to help empower them to change their life station by virtue of the place that they live? So that's sort of what really inspires me and kind of changed my orientation. When I got into apartments, I was going there for one thing, and what I realized and found as a result of that is something else. And so I've been empowered to try to figure out how to cultivate more of that with the work that I do.
So that's super inspiring. I'm sure that a lot of people can super get behind.
Sure.
Now it's not, earlier said, passive investment, just write the check, wire the money.
Yeah.
Now it's not. Now it's like also too in the reports, I don't want to just see vacancy rates. I'm interested if you even told me the story about Tammy and how Tammy now has moved on like that. That becomes something that I'm able to buy into. Yeah. Which is super cool.
It is.
How are you constantly allowing new investors in? How can people get involved? Are you at a place now where you're just like, hey, I don't need outside capital? Like how can people support you?
Yeah, thank you for that. So the answer is no, we're always looking and welcoming new investors. I think we're looking for people that love this double impact event, right? Like I get to invest my cash so I can earn appreciation and tax benefits, all that stuff. But also the money is being used in a way where it's impacting communities. There's a lot of apartments we look at the crime in the area. We're like, well, Is the crime because of the way the apartment is being run today? Like it's not creating a sense of community. They're screening in the wrong people. It's just not the right thing. Or is it because it's a bigger effect in the area? And owning an apartment complex where there's 200, 300 people that live there, plus the families, right? You have a massive, massive leverage point to really change the dynamic of a community for the better, right? Coming in with the right intentionality, the right purpose, the right inspiration. So we're always looking for new investors that want to put their money to work, but also put it for good.
So you're saying you're finding areas that kind of need to be revitalized.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting because then here's something that I've seen some of our previous guests that have been quite successful on that. Then there's also this other outside business. So I'm going to drop this for everybody watching. That if you could figure out, so this is the hard part, right? If you could figure out where JP was targeting.
Yep.
So if I knew, hey, JP's looking at San Antonio on the corner here.
Yep.
That means that simultaneously you're finding a deal, but that means on that corner, there's a convenience store, like there's other, hair salon. There's a lot of business opportunity that if I'm betting on you that you're going to turn this around, well, then the benefit radiates out, right?
Rising tides raise all ships.
Notice people trying to poach, not poach your deal,
I know what you mean. I've been on the other end of that. I worked on a project. It's a long story. I'm not going to get into it. Where it was very clear that this whole area was going to change because there was a big development coming in, and we were trying to pick up other surrounding spots because we knew there was going to be a lot of appreciation there. Yeah. It is a strategy, and the really savvy investors plugged into that. And that honestly, like as a data nerd, like that sort of thing always inspired me, and I geek out on that.
And I know people that though they like open you're about to go in a deal, so you've got like 10 LLCs.
Yes. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, exactly.
And that's super awesome. Super inspiring too, what you're doing. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and your story. It's super cool. All the way from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Here today.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, JP.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate being here. Awesome. Thank you, Sean.